الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So as we continue discussing the book Bulugh al-Maram by Hafiz Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, and in the previous lesson that we had, we were discussing that matter that relates to Ahkam al-Mu'amalat, and in specific we discussed Kitab al-Buyu, and we covered all those hadith that the author rahimahullah have mentioned regarding that discussion. Then the chapter that follows, that he discusses Bab al-Khiyar. So the second chapter that he discussed is what he titled as Bab al-Khiyar, those things regarding al-Khiyar, the person having a choice. Then we covered also the hadith that he mentioned regarding that particular topic. So today, inshallah ta'ala, we'll be going into the third of those topics regarding the overall regarding concerning Kitab al-Buyu, and we'll be discussing in that chapter of Buyu matter that relates to transactions. He discussed Bab Ar-Riba. So the third chapter is Bab Ar-Riba. We'll be discussing the ahkam that relates to Ar-Riba. So the Islamic position regarding transactions that involves riba, what's the Islamic verdict on those things. So as an introduction regarding this particular bab that he mentions, Bab Riba. So what is the common practice amongst the ulama, that and also those who have explained Bulugh al-Maram, that of those who will give a somewhat introduction on the topic of riba, so clarifying certain points regarding riba, and then they'll go into discussing the hadith that relates to the following points regarding riba. So as we know that riba, in English we say interest. So when we will use the word, in most part we use the word riba. At times we might use the word interest, but in most part we'll use the Arabic term, which is riba, which is interest in English. So as for the ulama, they mention as for riba, linguistically, that they have mentioned the asl of riba concerning az-ziyada. So riba, that it goes to ziyada, so something that's increase, or they mention ala, something that elevates, wa nama, and something also again that it increase. So these are different wordings that are used as for the meaning of riba in Arabic. So mention that az-ziyada, so something being increased, something rising, and the likes. So these are the meaning of riba linguistically. As for in the Sharia, according to the ulama of the fuqaha, that they are mentioned concerning riba, that the more simple they mentioned a definition regarding az-ziyada hasila, so it's an increase that have been an increase bimubadilat Rubawiya bijinsi, so an increase that have occurred by an exchange of certain things, of certain items that will include riba. So it's the increase that is given or that occurs regarding the exchange of certain items. Or I mentioned ta'khir al-qabd فيما يلزم فيه التقابض في الربوية. So it is matter, we mentioned, so a second matter regarding so a riba is at times an increase in matters that increase is not allowed, and that increase will fall into riba based upon certain items that they are being exchanged. So there is no increase that should occur between these items. Then second definition, they mentioned ta'khir is a form of the person who delays payment of an item, but delay the payment of the item, and this would bring about a riba. This would bring about riba if also that the person if it is not exchanged immediately. So if this is delayed, and also that it is not exchanged immediately or hand to hand, then this can fall into a form of riba. And as we give the example, it will explain themselves. So that's concerning, I mentioned a riba, which is concerning that something being increased by way of an increase that occur regarding items, where in those increase it is not allowed, that increase is not allowed. Those increase are not allowed, or that difference between the items are not allowed. So this is concerning riba that have been stated. So as for riba, that of the ulama, that they divide regarding aqsam riba or anwa, so different types of riba that occurs, that of the ulama, they mention that riba, they put it into 3 categories, and some put it and place them into 2 categories. So of the ulama, that they place riba into 2 or three categories. The first category of riba, they refer to Ar-Riba al-Fadl. Ar-Riba al-Fadl. So it's an increase, so it's a ziyada that occurs between two items. When those items increase in one over the other is not allowed. So, and we'll discuss, as we will go into further discussion, that will be explained. So, items where an increase have occurred, when increase between those items, that they're not allowed. So, by way of a simple example, that they'll mention that a person that we have dates. We have dates or pounds, currency, that British currency or American currency or whatever currency. So a person wants to exchange those items, which are currency or dates. So as for the person that exchange or buying of that from another person, that the person have, for example, is currency, that they're British pounds, and he wants to buy British pounds, similar British pounds from another person, and he said, I'll give you a 50-pound note, which is just £1 note. So one note, which is the value of 50 pounds, and you will give me 60 10-pound notes. So 6 10-pound notes, that's the exchange. So that is riba, because both are the same currency. So in that case, it's not allowed that in the same currency, in the exchange, so the person might say that, you know, that these 50 pounds, it is new. Those 10-pound notes, they're old. So I believe that my 50-pound note, it value more because your 10-pound notes, that they're old and they're being recalled by the state. So in that case, the person will be able to know, so if the person wants, I'll give you my 50-pound note, but in exchange, you give me 60 of your 10-pound notes. Then that becomes riba. Because in those items, they're not allowed that any form of indifference between the amount that is exchanged. So that's concerning Ar-Riba al-Fadl. They mentioned the second time Ar-Riba al-Nasi'a. So riba al-Nasi'a, that they state regarding at-ta'khir bayna shay'ain أو أوجب فيهما تقابض, where certain things that those items, they have to be exchanged hand to hand, immediate. So of those things they mentioned, that certain items, as we'll discuss, that gold being sold with gold, then that exchange should occur hand to hand, and also in similar, and also certain other conditions. So that type of transaction of gold being sold with gold, then the transaction should occur concerning taqabul, where the exchange occur hand in hand or immediate exchange. So that is riba and nasi'a. Also they mentioned, and then the third type that they mentioned, riba al-qard. So riba al-qard, which is the person mentioned that in this concern of like a debt, if I'll give you, which is normal case, I'll give you this loan of £100, but upon repayment a month later, then you have to give me £120. So the person can also, that's concerning, that is that type of transaction, then also it falls into riba. So a loan being given from one person to another, but one asking that when the repayment is being made, then you have to give me more than the amount that I initially gave to you. Then that is a riba. So those are different types of riba that they occur, that they mention regarding concerning that with these type of riba, that the first one, that out of one of those regarding riba al-nasi'a, that is an ijma between the ulama, it's haram. It's an ijma between the ulama that it is haram. Then the second type of riba, so that one concerning ta'khir, because of or an-nasi'a, where the person might say, I'm selling this item, if you pay me when it's time for you to pay me for the item, if you're able to pay me immediate at that time, a month from now you pay me that item, either you give me the full payment at that time upfront, any delay, then you have to pay something extra. then that becomes riba. That becomes riba. So they mentioned regarding concern that in that particular riba, that's an ijma between the ulama on this matter. Ibn Abbas, as I mentioned, concerned that, Ibn Abbas rata'ala anhu had an opinion, initially had an opinion where he believed or took the position that riba is only restricted to an-nasiya. That's the point. As for riba al-fadl, then that he mentioned, Ibn Abbas, that he didn't see riba except in the case of riba al-nasiya. That as we just, so that's concerning that, then eventually he changed that view. Then he changed from that view, but that's concerned that matter. The second type of mention that riba al-fadl, al-ziyada, that also occurs where all these cases that there's an increase in that item. Also that matter that I mentioned, ittifaq, as mentioned by Ibn Rushd regarding that, ittifaq and that also being haram. So many ulama see that al-riba al-fadl also haram, and that's between an ijma between the ulama. So, and also al-riba al-qard also that is considered to be also riba, which is haram. So all those type of riba is classified as haram. All are classified as haram. So of the next matter that is discussed regarding riba, they have stated that some of the books of some of the fuqaha, that they have mentioned that of the ulama, that the word riba sometimes is used, at times used by some of the ulama, the word riba meaning, or some of the ulama is taken as any haram business transaction is referred to as a riba. So that sometimes they use the word riba more general, meaning any transaction, business transaction that is said to be haram, they may refer to it as a riba. They may refer to this of the riba. So they mentioned that of the ulama, they mentioned the qawl, that they mentioned of time concerning Omar al-Khattab, Abu Hurairah, Aisha, and also Ibn al-Arabi al-Maliki, that mentioned these statements regarding of the ulama, and of them come from the Salaf, who at times may use the word riba in a general usage by way of indicating any business transaction is haram, that they may refer to it as a riba. So that is mentioned sometimes regarding concern that we might find that some of the books, if we find that the word riba being mentioned and it doesn't per se follow the normal meaning that is given to riba, then it is of that, then it is to be taken, taken as that generalized usage of the word riba regarding transactions that are said to be haram. And next of the matter to discuss regarding riba, so this is kind of some more, so this is like an introduction regarding the topic of riba, before going into the hadith that the author rahimullah mentions. So as for riba also, the ulama mentions haram, and that is proven by the Quran, the Sunnah wal Ijma. So riba is haram by way of Quran text, the Sunnah text, and also al-Ijma. So you find in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned regarding many places regarding concerning al-riba, regarding riba bin Masada, where we mentioned harrama al-riba. So that's what mentioned, wa harrama al-riba. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made haram al-riba. So al-bay' halal. As for al-riba, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this transaction to be that which is haram. And also by way of the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salam that I mentioned, ijtanabu sab'a mubiqat, that for one to avoid 7 destructive matter. And amongst those 7 destructive matter mentioned, aklu riba. So of those things, aklu riba, the person eating, taking from riba, the one consuming or taking of riba. Then that hadith, which is the hadith of Abu Hurairah anhu, that is in Al-Bukhari and Muslim, regarding ijtanabu sab'a mubiqat, for you to avoid, stay away from 7 destructive things. And of those things that are mentioned, they mention riba. So riba being mentioned, and also you find other hadith, the hadith of Jabir, to be discussed regarding that one is cursed for the take of riba. They mentioned that a group, a series of people that are involved in riba, that also that they are cursed. And the author rahimullah will mention that hadith regarding the impermissibility of riba, and also those who are attached. And also you find that the third of the regarding riba being haram is al-ijma. So the third evidence that is ijma between the ulama. So you find the likes of Ibn al-Munzir, Ibn Qudama, that they have stated that an ijma, and others that have stated that it is something which is haram. Even of contemporary Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah also reiterate that point regarding it being something which is haram, and in general that is that it's haram. So you have Ibn Munzir rahimahullah that he mentioned ajma ahli al-ilm ala qawl bihi regarding concerning wa ajma al-awam ahli al-ilm من أهل الإجاز والعراق والشام والمصر والمغرب أن حكم كل ما يقال ويوزن مما, that's a different matter they're discussing, but overall regarding that they mentioned that riba, that it is something which is haram. So Ibn Munzir, Ibn Qudama discussing that it is something which is haram, and an agree between the ulama. Also you find of the ulama also they mention a point regarding that riba also it is considered to be one of the major sins. So it's considered to be a kabahir of the kabahir al-dhunub. So it's considered to be one of the major sins. We find that of the ulama who have written books on the topic of major sin, that they have included riba. They have included riba. So amongst those who have included riba being haram as a major sin within those books on that particular topic, we have like al-Dhahabi rahimahullah, that in his book al-Kabair. So Al-Dhahabi rahimahullah, in his book Al-Kabair, he mentioned as the Al-Kabira Al-Thaniyatu Al-Ashara, that Ar-Riba. So he mentioned the 12th thing that is haram is riba. Then also you find Al-Haythami. So Al-Haythami, who has a book that is called Zawajir. So he has a book that is called Zawajir, that discusses concerning matters of riba. Also include this as of the major sin, of a major sin. So this matter is considered to be a major sin regarding the one who eats a riba, the one who eats riba, as we said, interest. A matter that is, just we'll mention this point, as some have mentioned this point regarding a riba. So a matter that is discussed between the ulama, as we state that riba is haram. So of those points regarding riba being haram, that they discuss in this matter, al-yuhram al-riba fi dar al-harb, that is it impermissible for one to take of riba while living in what referred to as dar al-harb. So the place, so what is meant by this, the discussion, that what's the ruling pertaining to taking of interest living in a non-Muslim country. Also mentioned Dar al-Harb, which is a country that is at war with a Muslim country. So Dar al-Harb, so you have that discussion between some of the ulama, or mentioned in the books of the fuqaha. So we have in general that ulama have classified concerning that the different countries. So Dar al-Harb is a classification that is given to certain countries. So the ulama have classified different countries as being one, Dar al-Islam. So those are countries that are the head of state. It is the head of state is Muslim, and they rule according to Islam, and the majority of the people, the inhabitants, are Muslim. Then we have second, Dar al-Kufr wa Dar al-Harb. So of the ulama mentioned that you have Dar al-Kufr wa Dar al-Harb, the countries of Kufr, and the countries are that is at war with the Muslim. So they mentioned regarding concerning what is said to be Dar al-Kufr, that they mention ad-Dar, these are those countries, meaning Dar concerning countries, allati saytar alayha al-Kuffar. So those countries that it is controlled under the authority of the Kuffar, under the authority of the Kuffar. وَيَحْكُمُونَهَا, and also that they judge, they rule this country بِقَوَانِينِهِمْ, and they rule this country based upon their laws, not by Islamic law. So they all the concern that those countries referred to as Dar al-Kufr. So those countries are these places, states, countries are countries that the Kuffar, they are an authority. They are the ones who are an authority over those countries, and also that they rule that country based upon their own laws, and their own system. Then I mentioned that, so that's Dar al-Kufr. Then those who mention that Dar al-Harb, the places of Harb, they mention that this country here, التي ليست بينها وبين المسلمين أهد أو صلح أو أمان. So these are countries, Dar al-Harb, that there's no covenant between them or an agreement between them and the Muslim countries. So there's no covenant between both them, the non-Muslim country, and that of a Muslim country. So they seem as enemy. They seem as there's no pact between them. So that's concerning Dar al-Harb. So that's concerning that clarity. So the discussion regarding concerning that of those who that they mentioned. So the ulama mentioned. So the masala is these countries that are non-Muslim country, such as those who may live in the West and the likes. These countries, is it permissible for one to take riba living in these countries? What's the permissibility on this? That you find that Jumhur of the ulama take the position that it is haram for a Muslim to take any form or engage in any form of riba, either between one Muslim with another or a Muslim with a kafir in this country. It is haram in all cases. So riba remains haram living in a non-Muslim country regardless whether the transaction is between one Muslim with another or between a Muslim and a kafir, or you mentioned a Muslim in that Dar Kufr, in that non-Muslim land, with another person in another place, whether that place may be a Muslim country or another place. So overall, Jumhur, and that's the call of Imam Shafi or Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, and also Ahmed and many other of the ulama. Then we find, so that's concerning the call of Jumhur of the ulama. Then there's and they base their opinion based upon, as we mentioned, all the ahadith, the numerous ahadith by way of the Quran and the Sunnah and the Ijma that outlaws riba. So all the evidence that discuss regarding the impermissibility of riba, then it applies to across the board, regardless of the people involved or the place it's being done. So regarding concerning that, place or people, it is applies across the board. So that's concerning that view that is there by some of the ulama. The second opinion on this matter regarding the taking of riba in the lands of non-Muslim, that qawl athani, a second opinion we mentioned, riba yajuz fi dar arb, that riba, it is permissible in the lands of the kuffar, bayna Muslim wa harbi, between a Muslim and one who's, they said, harbi, one at war, or bayna muslimain, or between even two Muslim who live in that state of the non-Muslim state at war. Lam yuhajir or lam yuhajir ahaduhuma, whether both of them didn't make migration or one made migration. The fact, so in that opinion, that they give a permissibility. So in this second opinion, they give a permissibility for Muslim to involved in acts of riba in these non-Muslim country that they mentioned between, they say, Qawsain, Dar al-Arb, countries, we said, at war. Then of those who, of this view, the more famous regarding Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, that is said to be of this view that give some permissibility of involving in riba in these places that they describe as Dar al-Harb. Then I mentioned that what's the evidence for this opinion? That the evidence that they use hadith that goes back to Mahkul al-Shami, and Rasulullah sallallahu قال لا ربا بين أهل الحرب, that he mentioned la riba, that there is no riba, no interest بين أهل الحرب, between the people of war. So I mentioned, so they take this as their evidence regarding the impermissible, that give a permissibility, that is saying that one, that riba is removed while between the people of harb, or in the between the Muslim and the people that they are battle with. So that's concerning that the evidence that is used, the critique of this evidence that is used, that they mentioned that the critique of this evidence of Mahkul al-Shami upon the Prophet ﷺ, that I mentioned that between Mahkul al-Shami and the Prophet ﷺ, that the hadith is as a breakage. They said it is marasil, it's a mursal hadith. So Mahkul tabi'i, narrated upon the Prophet of Islam, then that category of hadith is considered to be mursal. And so that's the set of, and also other factors. So one, the hadith is said to be daif because it is mursal. Also other narrators in the same isnad, that they are said to be people that they're either du'afa or matrukin, that people are weak. So you find that others who are in this isnad, that also they are criticized. Third, that they mentioned that marasil al-mahkul. So in particular, marasil, these type of narration where mahkul al-shami narrate directly upon the Prophet of Islam, that's impossible. Because there's a time gap. Where mahkul did not meet the Prophet of Islam at all, but because he's a tabi'in. So between him and the Prophet of Islam, you have a generation of the Sahaba. So they mentioned that him narrating directly upon the Prophet of Islam, then that's considered to be a weak hadith due to that fact that he did not meet the Prophet of Islam, so he's unable to narrate directly upon the Prophet of Islam. So also that fact added to this, that I mentioned that marasil, mahkul, so those narration that are narrated by mahkul, that are said to be of his marasil, that there's other narration that they mentioned that his marasil min ad'af marasil. So his marasil also, they are very weak. They're very weak. So those ones is marasil, that they are categorized in general as being the one that are very weak, that they are very weak. So based upon all of this, it shows that concern that the view that is taken, that the evidence that is used is somewhat daif, weak, and based upon this, then this qawl, it is considered to be a weak position. So that will weaken this position based upon the evidence that is used is weak. So the Raja, based upon that critique, then it goes that based upon this, that the qawl al-Raja, the correct position, is that it is not allowed for a Muslim to involve himself in riba in the lands, in these lands that are referred to as Dar Harb. So Dar Harb, that they refer to. So also for those who may take this position, especially of contemporaries, who may give permissibility, where you might find that of those who may use this opinion of Abu Hanifa rahimullah, and also others who may side with that view, that they may give allowances or some degree of permissibility for people to, as they say, either to buy their first house, so buying the first house in the non-Muslim land on mortgage. So first house purchase by way of a mortgage, then this is with them they consider to be allowed. And so you'll find they become you find that they'll give these permissibility regarding some cases of riba, that they'll give these permissibility. So you have those views that are there. You have these views that are there. So as for these who may take this, those who may give this type of fatwa, if they are if they can somewhat try to justify their position by saying that the likes of Abu Hanifa rahimahullah have give that concession in Dar Harb. Now we mentioned that what's your definition of Dar Harb today? What's your definition of Dar Harb today? Regarding concerning that, the countries, the time that we're living in today, would you consider these Western country all to be Dar Harb? Or what do you classify these countries? I've clarified to us that these countries are considered to be Dar Harb or not. Because the rule of Abu Hanifa, it applies to countries of Dar Harb. So to clarify to us that we're in these countries that of the West, that they are considered to be at this moment, at this time, considered to be Dar al-Harb. So that's concerning. So of those things for the Muslim to be very mindful regarding the people who give these type of fatwa, that for whatever reason, that they may pass out these fatwa. Also of the things that to just kind of somewhat they mention the hikmah. So our next matter regarding Ar-Riba, that the hikmah, while it is haram. So one and first that the hikmah being concerned that is a disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's of the greater the hikmah to the person to know that he disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by doing something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have made forbidden, and the Sharia have made forbidden. Also of those things regarding why the impermissibility of riba, al-dhulm, involve al-dhulm, that one party oppressing another, one wronging another. So that's and also it disencourage people to gain to use it as a way to gain wealth without per se putting much effort. So the gain of wealth without per se putting much effort. So that also of those things, and also it can somewhat do away in qita'. What I mentioned in qita', al-ma'ruf wal-ihsan fil qard. That also in business transaction that we have covered before, and also regarding in matter that relates to a debt and loaning someone of things, in that for a person to do so out of ihsan wal ma'ruf, in trying to aid and assist that person who may be in a particular situation, not the person is trying to capitalize on that situation. So not to capitalize and unjustly to benefit from those cases, from people who may be in those situations, for the person that in given a loan, that do so as a form of ihsan towards and are doing good towards another and trying to be helpful towards others, but not to see it as something to capitalize on from others or to cheat others of their wealth. And next matter that is mentioned, and this matter is mentioned by Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan Hafidullah Ta'ala in his explanation, that he mentioned that فَقَدْ انتشر الربا في هذا عصر, that we find that in present day time, that we find that riba have become widespread to the extent that no country is untouched. To the extent that the non-Muslim country, yes, leading on riba, but also we find that riba type of transaction of, like in the cases like banks, that they do exist in Muslim countries, unfortunately, iyadhu billah. So they do exist in Muslim, to the extent that extent even that they operate within Muslim countries. So that is something which is so they have somewhat become widespread, and they said maybe nowhere that is untouched regarding Ar-Riba. And also in today that a lot of the type of system that we're moving towards regarding concerning the use of cards, bank cards, that it's now becomes it becomes a normal part of everyone's life, of having a bank card. And if not having a bank card, then the person sometimes may find that things sometimes can be a bit difficult as to the system that we are in somewhat now and going towards more. So they mentioned regarding concern that because of the widespread nature of this matter regarding the spread of riba by many organizations and business, and we said banks, that involved in this type of transaction, then they mentioned that so you find the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that discuss this matter, or some hadith that are narrated upon the Prophet ﷺ that discuss this matter. So of those hadith that mention regarding that riba will become widespread, the hadith that is narrated on the authority of an Abi Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu قال أن رسول الله السلام قال يأتي على الناس, it will come upon the people zamanan, a time, يأكلون فيه الربا, they come a time that riba, that the people that will all take from it. قال قيل له, so it was said to him, الناس كلهم, all the people. So the person asking concerning this time that will become somewhat widespread. Then one of the narrators, someone asks, قيل الناس كلهم, will all the people fall into this regarding being affected in one way or another by riba? Then early Islam supposed to have said in this hadith, قال ومن لم يأكل منهم, and the one who does not eat from it, or those that does not eat from it, ناله غبارة, that a person will find difficulties, concern a person will fall into غبارة of difficulties regarding this matter. So they mention regarding concerning that this particular hadith, it is daif, that this particular hadith, that is kalam on this particular hadith regarding concerning that the hadith, it is narrated by Abu Dawud, also Nasa'i, Ibn Majah wa Ahmed, and in the isnad that they mentioned that Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah, that he narrated upon Abu Hurairah, and both didn't meet. So Hassan al-Basri did not hear or heard any hadith directly from Abu Hurairah anhu directly. So the hadith considered to be munqata. So the hadith considered to be a weak hadith. So even though said that hadith is somewhat mentioned regarding concerning the widespread, that the riba become widespread and everyone somewhat be affected by riba, I might say that by what this hadith is saying and what we find today, that you find that many are affected by riba. Many, especially concerning what they refer to as the more more concerned the Western countries that are more so affected. We find that in day-to-day life, regarding that anyone who's maybe an adult and who's looking for work and working, that you have to, concerning your pay, is by way of you have to have a bank card, and for you to be paid, then a normal practice in this country is that everything has to be documented. And the way that you are paid normally by most places by way of bank transfer, where money goes from into your bank account, that not as much people might do as cash payment regarding your salary. That's somewhat rare in this today's society. So you find that many are involved regarding riba, that by having an account, then with account, then in most part, then there's some riba and you have a special arrangement with that particular bank. So this shows regarding the widespread, that will become widespread. But we said the hadith that discusses this matter is hadith daif, but the reality concern we're living today, that riba is somewhat, yes, widespread. By way of the use of these type of cards, the normal bank, mainstream banks, that their bank card that do contain riba, and they have a special a great arrangement with them. So this kind of somewhat it shows regarding this matter, regarding that Ar-Riba and out of affected the life as most. So those are of those things that are introductory point regarding this matter pertaining to Ar-Riba, and the hadith that will cover, that will come, that Author Rahimullah will mention, that will go through these points in more details based upon in discussion or explanation of those hadith as we go through the hadith that are ahead of us. So that's concerning the introduction regarding concerning this matter pertaining to Ar-Riba. So we have mentioned regarding concerning that what is riba linguistically, az-ziyada wal-irtifa wal-ulu wal-nama. Also regarding Ar-Riba, regarding Ash-Shar', that what is said to be Ar-Riba, that and also that riba, it have different aqsam, that is of the ulama who place it into three, which is riba al-fadl, riba al-nasiya, or riba al-qard. That the first two, al-nasiya wal-fadl, is the one that some see it as those two only. Then we have concerns of the ulama at times may use the word riba in a more general sense, meaning any transaction which is haram. Also the impermissibility, the evidence to prove the hurma, to prove the prohibition of riba. You find that multiple texts by way of Quran, the Sunnah, and also Ijma. And also by this of the ulama, many of the ulama in their books of Kaba'ir al-Dunub, that they will include riba as being a major sin. So the ulama, they are somewhat have mentioned a riba, included riba as being of a major sin, where the person is liable to be punished for riba in the akhirah by way of al-barzakh and also by way of Yawm al-Qiyamah. Even though there is nothing clearly stipulated regarding the punishment for riba, regarding concern is haram, but as for it being the person, if there's an had, there's a specific punishment, prescribed punishment for riba in this dunya, there's nothing mentioned. But as for the punishment is in the akhirah. Then we mentioned that with concerning the riba, that of those discussion regarding riba overall, that riba with the ulama, it is haram in all cases and in any place. So it is forbidden that in any case, so a Muslim doing a transaction with a Muslim is not allowed for them to be involved in riba. Also a Muslim doing a transaction with a non-Muslim, then also he is not allowed to give riba to that person or take from that person who's a non-Muslim. So one cannot receive nor give riba to a non-Muslim. Then we mention that of a qawl which is da'if. So of the thing that we have to be mindful of, that the fuqaha alayhim rahmatullah, that those who are past who consider Immat al-Arba and others, that any alim, whether of those of the past or any alim of present that of the aqwal that we accept and reject based upon the evidence, and the evidence that the evidence also is in line with their view, or their view is in line with the evidence. So their views are in line with the evidence. So we'll find that at times an alim, and any alim, or that if we see that his view is contrary to the evidence and also contrary to the view of the jumhur of the ulama, then that view is rejected. So rather than take the view of one alim or a minority, a few, over that of the majority, and also with the majority of the ulama, the evidence is very straightforward, very clear, that it's impossible for us to leave away that view with those evidence to take a view that the evidence is weak and unsound. Because for us not to take an opinion because it suits our own desires or inclinations, but we take the opinion based upon a dalil. So that's not in this matter that Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, with all respect that he is deserving, and also to acknowledge all of his efforts and those of and others who came after him regarding their juhud, their effort regarding that Islam and the Muslim, that again they are humans, they are mujtahid, alim. If they make an error, then they get two. If they make an error, they gain one reward, and if they are correct in their position, then they receive two reward. So in this case, that we're not here to condemn the Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah as a person and as a mujtahid, but as for his view in this matter, then it cannot be accepted based upon the evidence that is used is not valid, by way if it is not a sound, credible evidence, because the hadith that are used is weak. So in this case, that what he mentioned regarding in certain scenarios, regarding in Dar al-Harb, it's allowed to engage in riba, then we mentioned that their view also, it is not acceptable. That view is unacceptable and goes against the evidence and majority of the ulama. And also if a person may want to use regarding, as they say, that riba for taking an house and other things, that they may give a permissibility based upon of the qawaid concerning fiqhiyya concerning that ad-dururat yubih or tubi al-mahdhurat. They says no, as for that qaida, is not being used in its right place, because regarding concerning ad-dururat is matter regarding life and death situation. So for a person to have a house is not necessarily a life and death situation. It's of those things that may be classed as matter regarding concerning hajat, but not necessarily matters of a life and death situation, where a person's life is at risk. A person may lose his life or lose of his limbs severely. So it says not that qaida is not applicable to this rule, to this situation regarding buying a first house on riba. So those are the things to look at. So, and also in these matters, that to go back to these matters, to go back to a credible lejna, a board of scholars that follow strictly regarding a text and stick to the Islamic principles or qawaid to the best of their ability on these matters, and not just any person who's an alim or said to be an alim or talib al-ilm. So with that inshallah ta'ala, we'll end this introduction, and in the other coming sessions we'll start discussing those hadith that Author rahimahullah have mentioned regarding bab Ar-Riba. وبالله تعالى توفيق وهذه إلى السبيل. How long was that one?